Good evening. So tonight I'm going to do a review of Louis Theroux's interview with Daniella Weiss. And I want to preface this video with a few things before we get into the live part of it. So I've made some observations around React videos, and my approach is a bit different. Rather than having an approach based on judgment or an immediate reaction, my nature is more around analysis and reasoning, and also coupled with emotion, and emotion that has history with a particular situation, a certain depth of empathy, and what I might call like a personal resonance with trauma. And there's certain things that some people understand better than others just based on their biographical background. It's not something a person plans on having experience with. They just do. And they don't always know this. Like, there are people who, just based on how life and circumstances has molded a person, sculpted them through decades of experience, some of those experiences chosen, many not so much. People end up at the end of their lives not just what they want it to be, but simply what they are, based on a lot of circumstances that were beyond their control. And some people never tap in and utilize that natural talent that they accumulated along the way, and it's food for thought. There may be in the future a discipline where people, not that they're complete strangers to themselves, but that what's obvious to them can be taken for granted and sort of overlooked, curiously enough, as a talent or a medium for some profession or way of helping others. It's easy to get into a redundant cycle of self-maintenance and not really think that it's a career, so to speak, more of a, I guess, a personal career. And many people out there, and I'm going to come back to this with the person that Louis interviews, they have a talent, and often that talent is being taken up by a shadow side of their psychology, of their emotions. But there's a flip side to the same talent. You might call it lead to gold. So Daniella Weiss is the person he is going to be interviewing, and she is the head of a Israeli settler organization that illegally terrorizes the West Bank and illegally settles homesteads that they have exiled the occupants from through oftentimes fatal incidents, fires, destruction, threats, bodily injury, burning olive groves, vandalism, arson, theft. The list goes on and on. The settlers in the youth settlers and adult settlers, if one could call them adults. Let's just say 25 and older, maybe 26 and older adults. And she's, for lack of a more polite term, a very dangerous individual. And I mean that in ways that I'll explain more through this video. I'm not using the word dangerous lightly here. Actually, it's a bit of an understatement. So Daniella Weiss, she's also head of Nashallah organization. And Nashallah means homeland. So it's a nationalist, it has a nationalist vibe. And then there's she was a former mayor as well, so she's got some politician experience in her background. She was the mayor of Kedemon. And so Weiss is of course a German last name, ironically enough, and she's part of the Ashkenazi Jewish ancestral lineage from Germany, Ukraine, in those regions, and maybe I'm not sure if I read maybe Poland is included in the region her ancestry is from as well. Weiss means white in German. Also another curious irony. So back to my approach. I feel like people like her do earn a lot of disdain and severe negative reactions from people, and that has its place in the world, but it's not necessarily a sign of possessing a utility to approach the problem with solid policies to achieve a better result. So I speak and make the point quite often that without there being a mandatory focus on mental health as a number one priority across the board in every uh, political station, managerial position, uh, workplace, schools, churches, uh, government, social systems, the whole gamut, until the mind and mental health is the number one priority, we will continue down this road of dealing with effects and being the effects of effects through reacting and then punishing and basically kicking the can down the road. Um, Again, the reactions that she gets are appropriate, but for me, I want to go. I want to go a bit deeper and talk about her, what she implies, her internal world, what's going on in there, because that's where she lives. It's her cave, and we're only seeing a projection of something that never comes out of the cave. So, I mean, it's. I have a history with this individual because she comes up very early on when the Gaza genocide started, um, and one of her main torches that she carries deeper into the cave she lives in um, is the settling of Gaza with Israeli citizens, and with no conscience around the fact that Gaza is basically the world's largest unmarked cemetery uh, currently, with people living in it, literally living in a cemetery, um, camped on top of metric tons of rubble with human remains still yet to be excavated. Um, so it's a dire picture, and this video is meant to be like an archival document in a way. Um, so it's my aim to record these thoughts and observations for perhaps future considerations, present day as well, as far as what's possible, just to understand better, give some ideas. Um, Daniella Weiss is undoubtedly suffering a psychopathy, like a clinical psychopath. Um, and I don't mean that in a exaggerated way or cynical way. I'm not naming her, like calling her a psychopath. I'm saying that she is clinically a psychopath. And it's really important for folks to anchor into the fact that human beings can become things that they themselves cannot undo. and folks need help. They need tools. They need experiences in the opposite direction if it's their desire. If it's not their desire, then in some cases, the best that society can do is some kind of reasonable institutionalized maintenance of this human being or human beings. There are times when human beings no longer have a choice of their own. They get so far out into the void that they lose a certain relativity and connection with humanity, and they become something else. And I'm not in any position to judge what that is. I think it's more like a mythological being than a human being to be judged as broken or evil or going to burn in hellfire or something like this. I think those kinds of judgments are fundamentally defeatist. Not only does it defeat the future, but it also defeats the person that's making the judgment. It doesn't do much to the individual, at least from sort of a leather chair react point of view. If society does that and they punish the person through some severe action, then yes, it does have an effect, the ignorance. So a lot of times with Daniella, people will imitate her psychopathy in reverse. They have a mild moment of psychopathy in reacting or responding to her psychopathy. Like they have a little synapses or a little explosion, and often the criticism of her is simply disgust and an emotional catharsis. And like I said previously, that's understandable. But at the same time, it's somewhat redundant in that it's like two chess players playing with the same color pieces. You're just not going to get anywhere violently condemning someone who violently condemns. It's you're mirroring one another in opposite directions. So it's like trying to hug someone with your back, with both of you with your backs turned to each other. It's just not going to happen. So Daniella Weiss is she's politician, ex-politician, mayor of Kedemum, and I may have mentioned this, but the Weiss is a again, I mentioned that the German ancestry, but it also means white, which I find to be ironic. And yeah, it's I think what she embodies um, as an archetype is like a black widow and the dark mother. Um, of course, black widows are considered homewreckers, basically bulldozers in human form, and they embody a very specific feminine shadow, and there are many feminine shadows, as there are multitudes of masculine shadows. And what I mean by a shadow is like an archetype. It's like a mythological figure with characteristics, very specific characteristics to its particular ego and how it expresses itself, and um, what its patterns are, patterns of behavior and desires and ambitions. Um, so it's like plumber, electrician, carpenter, tile mason, um, HVAC repairman, roofer, heavy equipment operator, crane operator, architect, foreman, surveyor. They all work in building something, but they all have very distinct career and job descriptions, and so do the archetypes. Um, the queen is not the princess. Uh, Diana isn't Venus. So it's important, I feel, to understand there's a bigger picture underneath the perpetrator of the psychopathy. And again, I want to stress that um, Daniella Weiss is a bona fide psychopath. And again, it's not name calling, it's not um, being sarcastic or coy or hyperbole, like it, or hyperbolic. It's she demonstrates a psychopathy on the level of like a bona fide psychopath. Like she is a finished product in a way. I don't mean finished as in she has no possibility of redemption or rehabilitation or uh, revelation. I don't mean that in a religious sense, but as a mental construct and as a human being, she has lived long enough to have gone through cycles of repetition and variety, and she has got it now down to a lifestyle, a way. Now, if she was 30, 40, I would be speaking something else. But she's older, I figure like maybe in her 60s. Um, and and she's further along the path of uh, like not being like she's more resistant to change now. Like she's locked in, let's say. Um, so let's get into this.
The BBC has released a new documentary presented by journalist Louis Theroux called The Settlers. It focuses on the figures behind the movement to make the West Bank and Gaza Jewish and to purge the areas of Palestinians. One of those figures is Daniella Weiss, known as the godmother of Israel's settler movement. She's the founder of the Nashallah Settlement Movement. That's a group that has the explicit backing of several politicians in the Netanyahu government. Now, in one interview, Weiss revealed her political understanding of that movement.
Do you have influence over government?
No question. Who did all this?
Can you call Netanyahu?
Okay, so again, here we have two distinct individuals, the obvious and maybe not so obvious. So she's very concerned about not being seen enough, not being acknowledged enough. And this makes her hyper paranoid of not being the center of attention. So when he asks her about her power level, she's already exhausted with the prospect of him not understanding what she needs him to acknowledge, and that is her extraordinary contributions and all that she has done. Now, it's important to understand, too, that all that she has done is destroy lives, exile innocent people, possibly have gotten people killed, and she is a destroyer of worlds, fundamentally, not so much a creator, although the creator part is her coping mechanism, but her crown jewel is destruction. So this whole mask that she's presenting, which I think largely goes unnoticed, is that she is a destroyer. This is her raison d'etre, or like this is her magnum opus. And it's almost like you can feel, or at least I can, there's razors in the air. Like there is a level of danger under her skin that's palpable. Like there's an emergency happening 24/7 right under the surface of her skin. A blood curdling emergency. And this is trauma, but trauma on a very different level than most trauma that you see in people who have mental health issues. This is trauma that would normally destroy a person, like early on. And she has survived the gauntlet. whatever that incident was, she survived it. But in that survival, she also assimilated it, and now she's dishing it out as the victimizer. And without knowing her private background, I wouldn't be able to like go into like a forensic like cataloging the events and pulling it out onto the table like almost like a dream analysis in a way. So that's not available, but I can intuit something here, and that is that when she says, "Well, who do you think did all this?" It's almost like she's beside herself that he hasn't already noticed her extraordinary, like he should be more prepared, right? Like how uncouth of you to not be prepared enough to notice the depth of my contributions and the breadth and scope of my importance. So this is low self-esteem. This is someone who has to hyperinflate and hyperaccelerate and stay 4 days ahead of herself in order to cope with Monday. So she's in Friday, but working with Monday. So it's a very high energy, paranoid, angsty situation, and also violent. There's a violence in her her expectations of, like, when you don't meet her expectations, there's like a violence implied.
What do you mean? Like this?
Mm-hmm.
No, I call his aid.
So the idea is to force the government by putting people, starts with small settlements, then they get bigger, then they get recognized by the state of Israel, and basically creating a new demographic reality.
We do not force the government. We do for governments what they cannot do for themselves.
Okay, so we do for governments what they cannot do for themselves. So this is ultimately a domestic terrorist. So again, the Dark Mother, who forces the son to live at home and not marry in order to take care of herself, in order to take care of her. She is the enslaver. She expects everything, gives nothing except more expectations. And I'm also sure that she's very good at guilt tripping as well, because that would be her mechanism in not asking for anything. She tells people things. She doesn't ask. So there's this implied, you will do it. Like, so, of course, her slogan, "We do for government what government can't do itself," this is because she is enabled by an apartheid nation with nuclear weapons at their back. Israel has impunity up until, well, they still do on many levels. You don't see NATO marching into Israel or the CIA doing a black operation to take down the government, a regime change. If any regime change is needed, it's Israel, but it's not happening. So the West and the G7, they have a situation on their hands. It's kind of like finding a Hannibal Lecter needle in a haystack the size of Jupiter. Because in Israel, when you've got 80% of the population, 70 to 80%, who support the genocide in Gaza, everyone is Netanyahu on one level. So you can't just replace. There has to be a societal shift, and I'm not so sure Israel, with all of its legacy of privileged trauma, which is a cognitive dissonant situation unto itself, because rather than get to the root of the trauma and act in a healing, reconciliatory way, they wear it as a badge in Israel. Like, they use it to justify the atrocities that they carry out in preemptively destroying, just in case it grows up to be a destroyer itself. So it's a this is what happens when trauma and mental health is not addressed and contained in some way by professionals. And the same thing goes for Washington, D.C. and the government and the Democrats and Republicans. There's no mental health screenings, psychoanalytical screenings. Trump would have never made it to even the street that the Capitol building is on if he went through a mental health screening and a psychoanalytical panel of social workers and humanitarian advocates and human rights advocates and various domestic psychologists and psychiatrists. I mean, he'd still be sitting in New York waiting to hear from them. So here we go. We'll keep moving along here.
Even if you take Netanyahu now, he is very happy what we do here, and also about our plans to build Jewish communities in Gaza. He's happy about it, but he cannot say it. He says the opposite. It's not realistic. Good!
Gaza is at a tipping point.
Good! We will make it realistic.
Okay, so when he says it's not realistic and she slaps her hands, right there, she revealed something. She cannot handle rejection whatsoever. This does not even compute. It doesn't even make it to the front steps. It gets lasered as soon as it pulls up and puts the car in park. It's done. It is DOA immediately. So since she lives in an apartheid ethno-nation state, she is not arrested and facilitated appropriately. she is let go, and the government knows that she's unhinged and extreme, and she is a proxy settler terrorist leader, and there you have it. This is what governments do. They find high functioning sociopaths and psychopaths to do their bidding when they need them, but not always on a permanent basis. But these days that seems to be changing. So severe resistance to being told no, or that's not realistic. Very, very severe. Like I say, very dangerous individual.
It's not forcing the government, it's helping the government.
Really important points. So it's lots of the documentaries.
So see how she stresses. Like, she cannot compute that she's forcing. Again, she's this idea of helping. This is her coping mechanism. She's a destroyer from A to Z. That's what she does. And she's convinced herself that destruction is life. Destruction is construction. And it isn't. It simply isn't. The results speak for themselves. Most of Gaza is 4 feet tall now. 80% of Gaza has been leveled. And 70 to 80,000 civilians genocided. And that's a low count. That's the ones that have been documented. There are numbers in the hundreds of thousands, even in some estimates, because there's the wreckage of Gaza has yet to be excavated and sorted through. So there are tens of thousands under the rubble yet to be accounted for. And I'm sure undoubtedly the IDF has black ops sites where there's thousands more dead and alive that will never be heard of, or maybe found decades later in mass graves, like Cambodia. And just my apologies with the lip syncing are not, they're not matching up. I'm still working with these review or react videos, however you want to call them, and figuring out the settings and things. And so at least I've got the sound. That's something, because my first review react video was muted. I didn't know it, and so that was interesting. But I kept it because it was a good one, and so just bear with this video. It's not very long. It's only 12 minutes and 45 seconds.
Sort of showing how extreme the settlers are, but that, I think, is the key moment, because it's saying we are doing the Israeli government's job for them, right? Because we're changing facts on the ground. Because obviously, in 1967, you can say, it would be a crazy proposition to say that the Israelis could build all of these settlements in the West Bank. No Israeli prime minister could come forward and just say that. But if they tolerate the settlements being built, then to say, the Israelis are already there, we can't ask them to leave, then that suddenly seems realistic, right? So the settlers, their job is to change facts on the ground so that then the Israeli government can just rubber stamp it. And of course, the map you saw there in the clip shows all the Israeli settlements built in the West Bank since the Six-Day War of 1967. During that period, Israel seized the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights, bringing 1 million Palestinians under the country's control. The occupation of those territories remains illegal in international law, a point Theroux put to Weiss.
Because it's territory that was won in the 67 war, that under the Geneva Convention, transferring a civilian population into a conquered terrain, that's considered a war crime.
This what I do here is a war crime.
According
And
to
you're
the UN.
Cooperating with the person who committed war crime?
Well, I'm interviewing you.
It's a light felony.
So it's interesting how she tried to share her criminality with him. Like that's a deflection, but she doesn't really care. She's not really into pretending to be other than she is. She wears it as a armor of pride that she understands that she's a destroyer, but she also feels that she's a creator. So this is where the psychopath comes in, where it's a double self-serving situation. And whoever's in the middle that gets in the way is immaterial. As long as her self-image is preserved, the whole world can burn down to a carbon molecule, and that'll be just fine. It's a situation where she is right in being wrong, and wrong in being right. And she holds both in equal, dueling terms. And so there's no conscience. Conscience is gone. It's left the theater, and no ethics, no morals. Only the task of this sense of being important and possibly reinventing the trauma that she has not reconciled, being the victimizer of that, like putting that trauma back out onto others, being the manufacturer of a repetitive echo within herself upon others.
A light felony, right? So you can see how it's a nudge, wink, wink. You know, we're not supposed to do it, but everyone does it. It's a bit like speeding. I've used this example before on the show. You know, we're not supposed to go at 35 miles an hour. You're not supposed to on a motorway go at 72 miles an hour, but sort of everyone does it. What are you going to do? It's like you're not supposed to illegally settle other people's land and kick them off based on their ethnicity. You're not supposed to do ethnic cleansing, but you know, in Israel, minor felony. Who doesn't do it? And Weiss, of course, isn't satisfied with just settling the occupied West Bank. Gaza was also settled by the Israelis until 2005, when the Israeli government decided to disengage from the Strip, and 21 settlements were torn down, and instead Gaza was placed under permanent siege. But Weiss has made no secret of her plans to help Israeli settlers return to Gaza. In November last year, Israeli soldiers helped Weiss to enter Gaza so she could scout out potential locations for future settlements. That's an idea she remains committed to. And at one point during the documentary, Theroux follows Weiss to a meeting with a group of rabbis and potential settlers at a viewing point near the Gaza border. There they survey the smoking territory and making plans to move Israelis in once, as they see it, the strip is emptied of Palestinians. Afterwards, accompanied by a military convoy, Theroux's car follows Weiss's vehicle. Suddenly, she veers off the road and makes a dash for the Gaza border. Moments later, military vehicles intercept her, blocking her path to the enclave. Later in the documentary, Theroux asked Weiss what she was trying to do.
I wanted to show the rabbis that Gaza is not something beyond reach.
Would you say October 7th made people more receptive to your message and to your point of view?
See, again, that's the psychopath talking. The Gaza in her head has no one in it. There's no one there. It's just vacant land ready for the taking. It's her Gaza. She is destined to be its Eve. And it was hers all along. That the people who are there are just in the way because she has the original title and deed to the land, and it's their fault that they live there. And since she is beyond human morality and ethics, she's operating on another level of a kind of faded divinity. She sees no reason why, she genocide makes sense to her. It's just a way of getting what is preordained, and the price, she's not even considering it. It's not even part of her ideological situation. But again, it's not so much ideology, because she's not only a Zionist, she's a psychopath. So this is a very different Zionist. Like, Zionism for her is a welcome mat that she wipes her feet on. She's on another level. Zionism is just a consequential situation. It's like, oh, Zionism, yeah, that. It's a tattoo on the bottom of her foot. She is too self-important to be under that title. She's standing on it. And so Gaza, she's in the future already. She's not even in the present. She's living in, again, she's in Friday, but dealing with Monday. And this is how she rolls.
No doubt. The October 7th naturally made people more receptive to the idea of the Great Israel. But the next step, Jewish settlements in Gaza, is a very difficult step that demands a lot of work. You have to influence the leftists, the government, the nations of the world, using the magic system, Zionism. You redeem the land, you establish communities, you bring Jewish families, you live Jewish life, and this will bring light instead of darkness.
like.
So see how she lists off all these things, and her hands moving like this. But this is not the most important thing for her. All that stuff that she's listing is out in front of her. Again, she's the destroyer. It's very important to understand this, that bringing in families, secondary. Jewish life, secondary. Bringing light to darkness, secondary. These are all domestic slogans that she uses to give a facade of redemption and renewal. She's catering to the Zionist project as a psychopath. But underneath that, she is a bona fide destroyer. That's all that she's interested in, is destruction. This is what she feeds on.
Instead of darkness, that's how she describes ethnic cleansing. Theroux's documentary seems to have been pretty well received so far, but back in February, when the production was announced, The Spectator published this piece by Jonathan Sacerdotti, called "Why Does Louis Theroux Keep Picking on Israeli Settlers?" That's not a protected characteristic. Being an illegal settler is not a protected characteristic. The article attacks the BBC for commissioning a program that, without having even seen it, the author believes will be biased against Israel. That piece, though, begins with a comparison that perhaps doesn't portray Israeli settlers quite as positive as Sacerdotti would like. He writes this: when is Louis Theroux going to make a documentary where he embeds himself with Hamas in Gaza, or Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Jenin, Nablus, Tarqum, or Kilkia? Probably never, because he'd most likely come to a sticky end. Instead, Theroux is once again making a film about Jews in Judea and Samaria, the region known as the West Bank, focusing on so-called settlers. So he doesn't even think, he just thinks this is already part of Israel and these are not settlers. This is a very, very extreme man, it seems. Meanwhile, The Guardian has given the documentary 5 stars, but their reviewer has potentially missed the point. So in an otherwise glowing review, Stuart Heritage ends by saying this: as with everything, you wish certain aspects of the situation could be explored more. Most notably, the peripheral glimpses of Israeli activists who protest against the settlements probably needs more airtime, if only to demonstrate that this is a problem of individuals rather than an entire nation. Ash, how, I suppose, blinkered in your kind of liberalism, I suppose, in this sense, do you have to be to sort of have watched that and say, well, it's just some bad apples, really, isn't it?
No, but Michael...
What would you tell someone who knows exactly what to do but can't make themselves do it? That gap has a name.
Cool. I think you're getting this all wrong, because, you know, we might do a piece about the royal family. We might talk about all the people that support the royal family.
Okay, I want to pause it there. So after writing a lot, researching a lot, doing, a lot for, what is it? It's 2026. So, yeah, about 3 years. People who know nothing or just know a little bit are going to write reviews flippantly. That's just our day and age. And it's unfortunate that there's no standards. Like the editors, they just want reactions. And even if it means having to pay a few $100,000 in defamation lawsuits, they make more money in advertisers than they will pay out in defamation. So there's another criminal enterprise that helps promote young sociopaths to write seemingly profound reviews, never mind that they haven't even seen the video. So this lady jumps in suddenly out of nowhere. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe that's just a second review. So ultimately, I wanted to just focus on Louis' part and Daniella Weiss and her actual recorded presence. And there are masculine versions of her, particularly men around Netanyahu. Some of them have, one or two of them have been sacked, but ultimately there's definitely a few psychopaths in Netanyahu's ranks. And there's levels of density. You can call someone a psychopath, but are they really? And it's only through watching their expressions and knowing what to look for and like seeing how they resolve problems and pushback and how they solve these things in a sense, like how they reconcile within themselves their ability to meet resistance, what they do, how their energy, like their emotional response, the nature of their emotional response, their intellectual operating system, like how they talk to themselves about things, how they rationalize things and justify facial expressions, body language to some degree, but ultimately it's a vibe and eyes. Like you can. It's an interesting thing that just through eye language you can tell a lot, but it's kind of a bit occult. Like you can't really do a hardcore analysis through just eye language, but it helps for sure. But it's more through conversation and actions. And of course, that person's reaction to their actions, like calling something a light felony. I mean, that's a cognitive dissonant statement. There is no such thing as a light felony. But that's her way of using language. That's the Black Widow's way, the homewrecker. It's entertainment for them. It's not a moral conundrum for them. It's entertainment. It's pure catharsis. And for her, she would care less being the mayor or the leader of this settler organization. These are just outward forms that she has woven as a web to catch people in. Her main focus is what sets at the center of the web. It's her. It's her throne. The center of the web is where no one else stands. No one gets caught in the center because that's where she is. Anything outside the center point is game. And so this is a complete self-serving ritual that she is going through. And of course, the government, knowingly or unknowingly, most likely, they just see the peripheral effects and they take advantage of that. And they use her as a proxy tool for apartheid development. But ultimately, she's using them. And and she could do this anywhere. Like she could go AWOL and end up in some jungle community as a drug lord or something. Like she's a chameleon. Because again, she has no sentimental connection to any of this stuff. It's all about self-expression and dominating circumstance, dominating loss of control, dominating resistance, destroying anything that would deny her self-expression. And this goes on and on. I'm not going to keep rambling about it. I'm just trying to bring home the idea here that there are dangerous people, and they need help. They need structured, full-throated help, in containment. I don't mean prison, okay, but I mean concerned, communal maintenance and observation. We don't have structures like that so much. I mean, there's some in more privileged neighborhoods and things, but ultimately it just runs amok until something weird happens and a toilet paper warehouse burns down in Ontario. There's no societal structure around containing the shadow, helping the demon figure itself out. There's a million people claiming to be exorcists, and none of them can speak demon. It's a farce in a way. It's a we're still in a farcical situation with dealing with the effects and bypassing the causes. And it's a serious farce. It's not, I'm not belittling anything here. It's a serious situation. And I think that for whatever reason, the mind and mental health and emotions, these things by the patriarchy are like the last thing on the list below toilet paper. It's like it's overlooked, and yet it is the boss. It's the thing that invents gods, believes in justifies hypocritical lifestyles, double standards, quid pro quo, self-destructive behavior. It's the ringleader who's allergic to wearing rings. I mean, it's a bizarre situation. So yeah, I think that's it for this video. I just want to stress that there's a pyramid of individuals in Israel that trickle out cult propaganda and enforcement of the indoctrination that 2 or 3 generations have been under in Israel. And the dark mother archetype, the black widow, the homewrecker, this makes sense to many people because they come from wrecked lineages via Europe. And also another curious thing is that all this talk that she does around Israel and settlers, and there's no one brought up the fact that it's a complete counterintuitive against actual Judaism in the Torah, like what Israel is doing. It's not a Judaic project. It's a Zionist, ethno-nationalist product. It has nothing to do with Judaism itself, like as a phenomenon. Like if you were to, I don't know, find a trunk filled with Judaic memorabilia, holy books, manuals on an alien planet, no humans, for solar systems upon solar systems. And these aliens started to practice Judaism. Well, it wouldn't have Zionism in there. It wouldn't have ethno-nationalism in there either. So just keep that in mind, that this whole idea of coming in, claiming Palestine is Israel, kicking off 700,000 people, no right of return. Long story short, total contradiction to Judaism. Not ordained by said God. Totally flies in the face of said God's primary plan. So ultimately, who needs Jesus? We've got this. And okay, so be it. You know, it's the religious details are not really that important. Like all the little details and stories they tell themselves and the world. I mean, the main focus is the occupation, its effects on real human beings and children, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, cousins, nephews, nieces. The list goes on and on. The genocide. $30,000 plus children genocided, more because they're under the rubble as well. 10,000 plus in military detention, false imprisonment, torture, starvation, disease, medical issues not being treated, beatings, more torture, collective punishment. It's ratcheting up. Iran has stepped in and has drawn a red line and a black line as well. And I think that things are going to get worse before they get better. And maybe they'll just get worse and stay that way. There's that too. And this is what I have to say tonight around this individual and this whole phenomenon. I wanted to present it as saying that underneath all that trauma, there's a little girl, Daniella Weiss, completely innocent, not a care in the world, looking forwards to life, being curious, exploring, just being herself. And then one day something happens. And then maybe she recovers, she feels things are safe again, and she goes back out. She's kind of brushed it off as a one-off, but then it happens again. And this is not just a one-off, it becomes a habit. Now she understands that she is powerless and she's in a trap that she can't get out of, and thus begins her situation. And this happens to hundreds of thousands of children, and of course their victimizer were also once children who were victims. So this trauma, this ancestral trauma, gets carried, the repetition of it, the habit, the dance of death, it keeps getting pushed forward and not dealt with. And so I'll do some videos around some other ideas around trauma, and you can also research online as well, how trauma is like effectual ways to have boundaries around one's trauma body, and shadow, and how to work with shadow, and so just acknowledging that Daniella was once innocent, and that child is still in there, but way, way, way in the back of the cave, like way down, so far down into the cave that she may not even know who she is anymore. Like she is just a presence waiting for biological life to unwind, and just in a stasis, like a cocoon of sorts, just waiting for things to cease, and trapped in in armor that was built through necessity in the beginning, but then vengeance and lashing out and somehow feeding off of destruction became a form of expression for her. Some people have similar things happen to them in life, and they keep to themselves. And how it is or why it is that other people can turn into victimizers of others, it's circumstantial. I don't think there's a recipe book for it. So thank you for watching this video and supporting the channel. Please give a like, comment if you care to do that, and I'd like to hear from you. Any suggestions, things that you'd like to hear about, or questions, answers. Thank you again for supporting the channel. Good night.